Alexander Sterling stood at the floor-to-ceiling windows of his Manhattan penthouse watching the city wake up below, while his 7-year-old daughter Lily sat in the corner moving her small hands gracefully as she signed to her teddy bear. And the morning sun cast long shadows across the marble floor, making everything look golden, except for the darkness that had settled in his heart since that terrible night 2 years ago, when the car accident took his wife Rachel and left Lily unable to speak, not because of physical damage, the doctors said, but because of trauma that locked her voice away somewhere deep inside where even his billions couldn't reach it. And he had tried everything money could by bringing in specialists from Switzerland, and therapists from Vienna, and speech experts from London, but Lily remained trapped in her silent world, communicating only when absolutely necessary, through sign language she had learned with frightening speed, as if her hands were desperate to say what her voice couldn't. And every morning Alexander watched other children playing in Central Park below, laughing and calling out to their parents, while his daughter preferred the quiet company of her stuffed animals, creating elaborate silent conversations that he could only partially understand despite the expensive sign language tutors who came every day. And this morning his assistant called to cancel yet another therapy appointment because the new specialist from California had given up after just 3 sessions, saying Lily wasn't responding and maybe they should try a different approach though. Alexander knew they had already tried every approach known to modern medicine and psychology. So when the nanny, Mrs. Patterson, came in, wringing her hands, saying, "She won't come out of her room again, Mr. Sterling, and she hasn't eaten breakfast," something inside Alexander finally snapped, not with anger, but with a desperate need to do something different, anything different from the endless cycle of appointments and failures. And he found himself saying, "Get her dressed, we're going out, just the 2 of us." Which made Mrs. Patterson's eyebrows rise, because Alexander Sterling never went anywhere without his driver and security team, but today would be different. And 30 minutes later he was holding Lily's small hand, walking through the busy streets of Manhattan, feeling strangely vulnerable without his usual entourage, while Lily looked around with curious eyes that seemed to take in every detail of this world. She rarely saw beyond car windows and therapy offices, and they walked past expensive boutiques and gleaming skyscrapers, until suddenly Lily tugged his hand hard and pointed at something that made Alexander stop in surprise, because it was just a small cafe, squeezed between a dry cleaner and a bookstore, with a hand-painted sign reading, "Melody's Corner," and flowers in the window boxes that had seen better days. But something in Lily's eyes made him pay attention, as she pulled him toward the door, with more enthusiasm than she had shown in months. And when they entered, the smell of fresh coffee and cinnamon rolls wrapped around them like a warm hug, while morning light streamed through windows, decorated with children's paper snowflakes, even though it was spring, and the cafe was nothing like the 5-star restaurants where Alexander usually conducted business meetings with their white tablecloths and crystal glasses, because this place had mismatched chairs and tables, scarred from years of use, and walls covered with crayon drawings, and thank you notes and photos of smiling customers. And an elderly Asian woman behind the counter called out, "Sit anywhere you like," loves with such genuine warmth that Alexander felt something loosen in his chest as Lily led him to a corner table by the window, where she could watch both the street outside and the cozy interior, and he noticed how her eyes tracked everything, taking in the young mother feeding a baby at one table, and the old men playing chess at another, and the college students hunched over laptops and textbooks scattered across their table. And the menu was written on a chalkboard, in colorful chalk, with little doodles of coffee cups and smiley faces next to items like Mama Chune's famous pancakes, and Happiness hot chocolate, and sandwich hugs. Which made Alexander realize this wasn't just a cafe, but someone's labor of love. And Lily studied the board intently, her fingers twitching slightly, as if she wanted to sign something but wasn't sure he would understand. And Alexander was about to use his phone to pull up the translation app, when he heard footsteps approaching their table and looked up to see a young black woman, probably in her mid-20s, with natural hair pulled back in a neat bun and wearing an apron decorated with musical notes. And her name tag said Maya in cheerful letters, but it was her smile that Alexander noticed first, because it wasn't the practiced smile of someone in customer service, but something genuine that reached all the way to her warm brown eyes as she said, "Good morning, welcome to Melody's Corner," to him, before turning to Lily. And then something extraordinary happened that made Alexander's coffee cup freeze halfway to his lips, because Maya's hands began moving in fluid, practiced motions as she signed, "Hello beautiful, what's your name?" And Lily's entire body went rigid with shock before her face transformed with the first real smile Alexander had seen in 2 years. Lily's small hands flew up immediately, signing back, "I'm Lily, you know sign language." with such excitement that her whole body seemed to vibrate with joy, while Maya nodded enthusiastically and signed. Yes, I do. My little brother is deaf, so I learned when I was young, and now we can talk all we want, so tell me what brings you to our cafe today. And Alexander watched in complete shock as his daughter, who had barely communicated with anyone in 2 years, suddenly began signing, rapidly telling Maya about the walk, and how she saw the flowers in the window, and how the cafe smelled like her grandmother's kitchen used to smell before she passed away. And Maya listened with her whole body leaning forward, and responding with little gasps, and nods, and signs that made Lily giggle, a sound Alexander hadn't heard in so long. The tears pricked his eyes, and then Maya signed something that made Lily laugh harder, covering her mouth with both hands, before peeking at her father with mischievous eyes that reminded him painfully of Rachel. And Maya turned to Alexander saying, "She tells me you're a very serious man who needs to learn how to smile more, and she's worried you might scare away all my other customers with your grumpy face." And she winked at Lily, who was practically bouncing in her seat, and Alexander felt his mouth drop open because Lily had never expressed anything like that to any of her therapists or tutors, but here she was opening up to this stranger like a flower turning toward the sun. And Maya continued signing with Lily, asking, "What would you like to eat today, because we have special chocolate chip pancakes that look like smiley faces, and Mrs. Chen makes them with a secret ingredient that makes them extra fluffy." And Lily's eyes went wide as she signed, "Can they really smile?" which made Maya nod seriously and sign back, "Oh yes, and sometimes, if you're really lucky, they wink at you," to causing Lily to dissolve into silent giggles that shook her entire body. And other customers in the cafe began to notice the animated conversation happening in Sin language, with an elderly woman at the next table leaning over to whisper to her companion, "Look at that deer, isn't that wonderful?" while a young mother with a toddler watched with a soft smile. And Maya suddenly signed something to Lily that made her nod eagerly before Maya announced to Alexander, "She says you need to learn some signs so you can order your own breakfast, because she's not going to be your translator forever." And she said it with such playful authority that Alexander found himself nodding like a schoolboy. And Maya began teaching him the sign for coffee, which involved a motion like grinding coffee beans, and Alexander's clumsy attempts made both Lily and Maya laugh, but not in a mean way, rather like they were all in on the same wonderful joke. And then Maya taught him to sign please and thank you and hungry, while Lily watched with fierce concentration, occasionally correcting his hand positions with gentle adjustments that showed she had been paying attention during all those tutor sessions, even when she seemed disconnected. And when the food arrived, Maya had indeed arranged the pancakes into smiley faces with blueberry eyes and strawberry smiles, and she'd done something special with Lily's plate, creating an entire butterfly out of pancakes and fruit that was so beautiful Lily didn't want to eat it at first, just staring at it with wonder, while signing, "It's too pretty to eat." But Maya signed back, "Beautiful things are meant to be enjoyed, not just looked at," which seemed to mean something deeper, that made Lily nod thoughtfully before taking her first bite. And as they ate, Maya would stop by between serving other customers, teaching them both new signs like delicious, which involved touching your lips and moving your hand forward, and happy, which was both hands brushing upward on the chest repeatedly. And Lily kept making Alexander practice until he got them right. And at one point, Maya brought over a small notebook and crayons without being asked, and Lily immediately began drawing, while occasionally showing Maya her progress, and Maya would sign encouragement, making Lily beam with pride. And Alexander realized he had never seen his daughter this animated, even before the accident, because she was usually quiet and reserved. But something about Maya brought out a light in her that he hadn't known existed. And when Maya signed a story about a butterfly who lost her voice but learned to dance instead, Lily watched with rapt attention, her eyes following every movement of Maya's expressive hands and face. Because sign language, Alexander was learning, wasn't just about hands, but about the whole body and face working together to create meaning. And an hour passed without Alexander checking his phone once, which his assistant would never believe, because Alexander Sterling was famous for multitasking even during family dinners. But right now nothing existed except this table and his daughters, Joy, and this remarkable young woman who had somehow broken through walls that dozens of experts couldn't even crack. And when it was finally time to leave, Lily signed something long and complex too. Maya, who smiled softly and signed back before translating for Alexander, "She wants to know if I'll be here next Saturday, and I told her I work every Saturday morning." And Lily grabbed Alexander's hand, squeezing it hard while looking up at him with pleading eyes that he couldn't have resisted even if he wanted to. And as they walked home, Lily kept signing, "Maya understands, Maya is my friend, Maya makes me happy," over and over, while Alexander's mind raced with questions about this waitress who had accomplished in one morning what 2 years of therapy hadn't achieved. And that night, for the first time since the accident, Lily came to his study and signed, "Thank you, Daddy, for taking me to the cafe," before hugging him tightly, and Alexander held his daughter, feeling her small heart beating against his chest, while tears rolled down his cheeks, because he finally had hope that maybe, just maybe, they could find their way back to each other, through the bridge that Maya had somehow built with nothing more than warm smiles, and flying hands, and butterfly pancakes. The Saturday morning visits to Melody's Corner became the highlight of their week, with Alexander clearing his entire schedule. No matter how important the meetings were, because nothing was more important than watching Lily come alive in Maya's presence. And over the following weeks, something magical happened as Lily began signing not just to Maya, but to other customers too. Teaching a curious toddler how to sign cookie, and showing an elderly man how to say good morning with his hands. And Maya would beam with pride, calling Lily her assistant teacher, which made Lily stand taller and sign with more confidence. And Alexander found himself learning to not just sign language, but how to really see his daughter, understanding that her silence wasn't emptiness, but a different kind of fullness. And Maya would tell them stories about her brother Marcus, who was born deaf, and how their family had learned that deafness wasn't a disability, but a different way of experiencing the world. And she shared how Marcus was brilliant at math, and wanted to be an engineer, and how he played basketball better than anyone she knew, because he could see patterns others missed. And Lily would drink in these stories, signing rapid-fire questions about Marcus and his school and his friends, while Maya answered patiently, weaving a picture of a world where being different wasn't something to fix, but something to celebrate. And one rainy Saturday, 3 weeks into their routine, Alexander and Lily arrived at the cafe, shaking off their umbrellas, only to find Maya wasn't there, and the worry on Lily's face was like a knife in Alexander's heart, as she signed, "Where is Maya?" over and over to Mrs. Chen, who was working the counter. And Mrs. Chen's face grew soft and sad as she said, "Maya's at the hospital, dear. Her brother had another surgery yesterday," which made Alexander freeze because he hadn't known about any surgeries. And Mrs. Chen continued, seeing his confusion. "Oh, that girl never complains, but Marcus needs several surgeries for a cochlear implant. Not that he wants it, but their insurance only covers part, and Maya, she works 3 jobs to pay for it all. This cafe job, then tutoring in the evenings, and cleaning offices at night, plus she goes to school." And Alexander felt something shift in his chest as Mrs. Chen went on. "She's studying to be a special education teacher, only takes 2 classes a semester because that's all she can afford, but she never misses work except when Marcus needs her." And suddenly Alexander understood why Maya had those dark circles under her eyes that she covered with bright smiles, and why she sometimes stifled yawns when she thought no one was looking. And Lily was signing frantically, "Is Marcus okay? Will Maya come back?" And Mrs. Chen nodded, saying, "She'll be back next week. She never stays away long, says you two are her favorite customers." Which made Lily smile a little, but Alexander's mind was racing with newfound understanding. And the next Saturday Maya was indeed back, though she looked exhausted and thinner, but her smile when she saw Lily was as bright as ever, and she signed, "I missed you so much, my butterfly girl," which made Lily launch herself at Maya for a hug. That surprised everyone, including Maya, who caught her with gentle arms. And while Lily was in the bathroom, Alexander finally said what had been burning in his chest all week. "Maya, I need to thank you properly for what you've done for Lily." But Maya shook her head, saying, "Mr. Sterling, I'm just being a friend. She's an amazing kid." But Alexander pressed on, "No, it's more than that. You've given her back something I thought was lost forever. You've shown her she's not broken." And Maya's eyes grew serious as she said, "That's because she's not broken, Mr. Sterling. And neither are you," which made Alexander's breath catch. And Maya continued softly, "Lily tells me things when you're not paying attention. She tells me how you stayed by her hospital bed for 3 months after the accident, how you learned sign language overnight, how you read to her every night even when she pretended to sleep, how you blame yourself for the accident, even though you weren't even in the car." And Alexander felt tears, threatening, because no one had ever said that last part out loud. And Maya reached across the table briefly, touching his hand. "She knows you're hurting too. She signs about it all the time, says Daddy is sad inside. And she wants to make you happy, but doesn't know how." And Alexander had to look away as Maya added, "She thinks if she stays quiet enough, you won't be reminded of her mother's voice. But Mr. Sterling, Rachel's voice lives in Lily's laughter, in her joy, in the way she sees the world, and that's not something to hide from, but something to celebrate." And Alexander didn't know how this young woman, who was struggling with her own challenges, could see so clearly into their pain. And when Lily came back, she found her father wiping his eyes, which made her sign Anxiously, "Daddy, are you sad?" And for the first time, Alexander signed back, "No, butterfly. I'm happy," crying because Maya reminded me of something important, and Lily tilted her head, signing what? And Alexander took a breath before signing slowly and carefully. "That mummy lives in your smile," which made Lily's eyes fill with tears before she threw herself into his arms. And Maya watched them with her own tears falling as this broken family began to heal, right? There in a crowded cafe with the smell of coffee and the sound of rain against windows and the silent language of hands, speaking truths that words had never been able to reach. And later, as they were leaving, Maya handed Alexander a piece of paper with her school schedule and said, "I have a presentation next week about inclusive education, and I'm supposed to bring a personal story. Would you and Lily maybe consider coming?" And Lily was already signing yes, yes, yes before Alexander could respond. And that night, as Alexander tucked Lily into bed, she signed, "Maya sees me. Daddy really sees me. Not just the quiet girl, but me." And Alexander signed back, "I see you too, butterfly. I finally see you too." And Lily smiled the kind of smile that Rachel used to have when she was truly happy. And Alexander realized that sometimes the most profound revelations come not from expensive experts in sterile offices, but from young women in small cafes who work 3 jobs and still have enough love left over to heal strangers with butterfly pancakes and patient hands that speak louder than any voice ever could. 2 months had passed since their first visit to Melody's Corner, and the cafe had become their second home, with Lily even having her own special mug that Mrs. Chen kept behind the counter with a butterfly painted on it. And this particular Saturday started like any other, with Alexander and Lily walking hand in hand through the spring sunshine, both of them signing excitedly about showing Maya the new signs they had learned that week. But when they pushed open the familiar door, instead of the usual warm atmosphere, they found chaos, with Mrs. Chen arguing loudly with a man in an expensive suit, while Maya stood in the corner crying, and several regular customers, including the chess-playing old men, and the young mother with her baby looking distressed and angry. And Lily immediately ran to Maya, signing frantically, "What's wrong? What happened? Why are you crying?" While Alexander approached Mrs. Chen, who was waving papers in the air, shouting, 30 years, I've been here 30 years, and you give me 30 days. And the man in the suit remained cold and unmoved, saying, "The building has been sold, Mrs. Chen. You knew this was coming, eventually. Property values in this neighborhood have tripled." And Alexander felt his stomach drop as he began to understand what was happening. And the suited man, who identified himself as Mr. Harrison from Hartwell Industries, continued, "All tenants must vacate. Within 30 days the building will be demolished to make way for luxury condominiums." And Mrs. Chun's voice cracked as she said, "This isn't just a business, this is a community center. The deaf community meets here every Tuesday night. Single parents bring their kids here because we don't judge when they can only afford one muffin to share. Teenagers do homework here because their apartments are too crowded. This is where Mrs. Rodriguez learned English and where Tommy got his first job after prison." But Mr. Harrison just shrugged, saying, "That's all very touching, but business is business. The new development will bring jobs and increase property values." And Maya stepped forward, her voice shaking but determined. "Those jobs won't go to people from this neighborhood, and those property values will push out families who've lived here for generations. You're not improving the community, you're destroying it." But Harrison was already walking toward the door, saying over his shoulder, 30 days, that's final." And after he left, the cafe fell into stunned silence. And Lily was signing to Maya with tears streaming down her face. "They can't take our place away. This is where I found my voice. This is where Daddy learned to smile again." And Maya tried to smile through her own tears, signing back, "Sometimes things change, butterfly girl, but we'll always be friends no matter what." But Lily shook her head violently, signing, "No, no, no, you need this job for Marcus, for school. Where will you go? What will happen to everyone?" And Alexander watched his daughter's heart breaking and felt a familiar rage building in his chest, but this time it wasn't helpless rage, because Alexander Sterling was many things, but helpless wasn't one of them. And he pulled out his phone, making rapid calculations, while the cafe erupted in worried conversations with regular customers, offering suggestions that everyone knew wouldn't work, like starting a petition or holding a fundraiser, because 30 days wasn't enough time, and Hartwell Industries was too big to care about petitions. And that evening, Alexander stayed up until 3 in the morning, making calls to his legal team and his business advisors, discovering that Hartwell Industries was a mid-sized development company he had actually considered acquiring 6 months ago, before deciding they were too aggressive in their tactics. And by morning, he had a plan, but when he arrived at the cafe on Monday afternoon to share it, he found Maya packing up her personal items from behind the counter, and his heart sank as she explained, "I got offered a teaching position, Mr. Sterling. It's in Boston, and it starts immediately. They need someone who knows sign language for their special education program. And with Marcus needing another surgery next month, I can't afford to wait and see what happens with the cafe. Pay is better, and the benefits include insurance that will cover his medical expenses. And Alexander wanted to tell her about his plan to buy the building, but he could see the defeat in her eyes, and knew she had already made peace with leaving. And Lily, who had insisted on coming after school, took one look at the boxes and began signing so fast that even Maya had trouble following, but the message was clear. You promised you wouldn't leave, you said we were friends, you said I was special. But you're just like everyone else. You're giving up, and Maya knelt down to Lily's level, signing slowly. I'm not giving up, Butterfly. I'm trying to take care of my family, just like your daddy takes care of you. Sometimes we have to make hard choices. But Lily wouldn't accept it, signing, Daddy has lots of money. He can fix this. Tell her. Daddy, tell her, you can fix everything. And Alexander felt the weight of his daughter's faith crushing him, because for once his money felt useless in the face of Maya's dignity and independence. And Maya stood up, saying quietly, Mr. Sterling, I know you want to help, but I can't accept charity. I've worked my whole life to stand on my own feet, and I need to do what's best for Marcus. And she began to walk toward the door with her box of belongings, while Lily collapsed into a chair, signing over and over, Don't go, don't go, don't go. And something about his daughter's devastation, mixed with Maya's proud shoulders, walking away, made Alexander's mind suddenly clear. And he called out, Maya, wait, what if it's not charity? What if it's a job offer, a real one? And Maya turned slowly, skeptical and tired. Mr. Sterling, please don't. But Alexander continued, his voice gaining strength. I've been working on something for weeks now, a new initiative through the Sterling Foundation, creating community spaces that are truly inclusive spaces, where people like Lily and Marcus aren't just accommodated, but celebrated, where families like yours and mine can find support and connection. And Maya's eyes narrowed. That sounds wonderful, but what does it have to do with me? And Alexander took a breath, knowing he had one chance to get this right, because I need someone to run the educational component, someone who understands both the deaf and hearing worlds. Someone who knows that true inclusion isn't about fancy equipment or expensive programs, but about seeing people for who they really are. Someone who can teach others what you taught me, that different doesn't mean less than. And the cafe had gone completely quiet, everyone watching as Maya stood frozen in the doorway, while Lily signed desperately, Please, Maya, please stay, we need you. I need you. And Alexander added his voice to his daughter's plea. The salary is double what Boston is offering, full benefits for you and Marcus, scholarship funding to finish your degree, and most importantly, you'd be building something that matters, something that will last, something that will help other families like ours. And Maya's voice was barely a whisper, This is really real, not just something to keep me here. And Alexander nodded, pulling out his phone to show her the foundation papers his lawyers had drawn up, with her name already listed as Director of Educational Services. And Maya's hands shook as she read, while tears rolled down her cheeks. Maya stood there holding the phone with trembling hands, reading the official documents that would change her life, while the entire cafe held its breath. And Lily signed repeatedly, Say yes, say yes, say yes, until Maya finally looked up with tears streaming down her face, saying, Mr. Sterling, this is too much. The salary, the benefits, the scholarship, it's everything I dreamed of but never thought possible. And Alexander stepped forward, saying firmly, It's not too much, Maya, it's what you're worth. Actually, it's probably not enough for someone who gave me back my daughter. And Mrs. Chen suddenly spoke up from behind the counter. Take it, dear, you've earned this chance. While the regular customers began clapping and cheering as Maya slowly nodded, setting down her box and running to embrace Lily, who was signing so excitedly her hands were a blur. And over the next 30 days, everything moved at lightning speed, with Alexander's team not only purchasing the building but the entire block, ensuring that no developer could threaten the community again. And Maya threw herself into planning the new initiative, which they decided to call Silent Voices, Heard Hearts, with meetings that included community members and families affected by various disabilities. Not just deafness, because Maya insisted true inclusion means everyone belongs. And she brought in experts and advocates, but more importantly, she brought in real people with real stories. And the renovation of Melody's Corner began with Maya and Lily choosing colors and designs, together with Lily insisting on butterfly motifs everywhere. Because butterflies mean transformation, she signed with wisdom beyond her 7 years. And Marcus finally met Lily during one of the planning sessions, and the two children immediately bonded with Marcus, teaching Lily how to sign jokes that made adults groan, while Lily showed him her drawings, and they created their own secret signs that no one else understood. And Mrs. Chen agreed to stay on as the cafe manager, teaching her famous recipes to new staff members who would all be trained in basic sign language, as Maya instituted a policy that every employee must learn at least 50 signs, and the old men volunteered to run afternoon tutoring sessions while the young mother offered to start a parent support group, and suddenly the whole community was involved in creating something bigger than just a cafe. And Alexander watched all of this unfold with amazement, as his corporate world of hostile takeovers and profit margins seemed suddenly hollow, compared to the joy of watching Maya teach a group of hearing parents how to communicate with their deaf children, while seeing Lily help design the children's corner, with reading nooks and sensory play areas. And 3 weeks before the grand opening, Maya surprised Alexander by saying, "I want you to give the opening speech," which terrified him more than any board meeting ever had. But Lily signed, "You can do it, Daddy, I'll help you," and together they practiced with Lily, teaching him how to sign key parts of the speech, so everyone could understand. And the night before the opening, Alexander found Maya still at the cafe at midnight, adjusting displays and checking lists, and he said, "Maya, you need to rest, everything is perfect," but she shook her head, saying, "It has to be more than perfect. Mr. Sterling, this isn't just about us anymore. This is about showing the world that spaces like this can exist and thrive, that inclusion isn't charity, but community," and Alexander understood that. For Maya, this was the culmination of everything she had worked for. And the morning of the grand opening, the line stretched around the block with news crews and city officials, and hundreds of community members, all waiting to see what had been created. And when the doors opened, people gasped at the transformation, with one wall covered in a massive mural painted by local deaf artists, showing hands forming words that became butterflies taking flight, while another wall displayed photographs and stories from the community in both English and Braille, with QR codes that linked to sign language videos. And the menu now included pictures and simple signs next to each item with prices that remained affordable, because Alexander had insisted this stays a place where everyone can come, not just people with money. And Maya had created different zones, including a quiet sensory area for people with autism, a technology corner with devices for various disabilities, and the main cafe space where the mismatched chairs had been kept, because Mrs. Chen said they were part of the soul of the place. And when it came time for speeches, Alexander stood at the makeshift podium with Lily beside him, and began speaking while signing the words he and Lily had practiced. 2 months ago, my daughter lived in a world of silence, and I thought silence meant isolation, meant loss, meant broken dreams. But then we met Maya, who showed us that silence can be full of conversation, that disability doesn't mean inability, that different is not less than. And he paused as his voice caught, seeing Maya crying happy tears while holding Marcus's hand. Maya taught us that connection doesn't require words, that understanding doesn't require sound, that love doesn't require voice. And today we open not just a cafe, but a promise that every person, regardless of ability, has a place where they belong. And then Lily stepped forward, signing while Maya voiced for her. "This place saved me when I thought I would be quiet forever. Maya showed me that my hands could sing, that my silence could speak, that my difference could be my strength, and now other kids like me and Marcus will have a place where they don't have to pretend to be normal, because here, different is normal." And the crowd erupted in both applause and the deaf applause of hands waving in the air, creating a visual representation of joy. And as the day progressed, hundreds of people came through, sharing stories and connections, with a teenage girl with Down syndrome getting her first job interview, and an elderly man with Parkinson's finding a support group, and parents of newly diagnosed children finding hope in Maya's programs. And near the end of the day, Alexander found Maya standing in the butterfly garden they had created in the small courtyard, watching Lily and Marcus teaching a group of children how to sign the word friend. And Maya said quietly, "6 months ago, I was just a waitress trying to pay bills, and now look at what we've built." And Alexander replied, "No, Maya, 6 months ago, you were already changing lives. You just needed the resources to change more of them." And she smiled that same warm smile that had started everything, saying, "Your daughter calls this our miracle place." And Alexander nodded, watching Lily laugh with abandon, surrounded by children who understood her perfectly. "She's right, it is miraculous, but not because of magic or money, but because one person saw another person's worth and refused to let the world diminish it." And as the sun set on the grand opening, casting golden light through the windows decorated with paper butterflies made by local children, Alexander realized that his billions hadn't bought this happiness, but had simply provided the foundation for something Maya had been building all along, with every smile, every sign, and every moment of connection. And when the last customer finally left and they were cleaning up, Lily signed to both Alexander and Maya, "We did it. We made a place where everyone can find their voice." And Maya signed back, "No, butterfly, you did it by showing us that voices come in many forms, and the loudest ones aren't always the ones that make sound." And as they locked up the cafe that night, Alexander looked at the new sign that read, "Silent voices hurt hearts," where every voice matters, and knew that this wasn't an ending but a beginning of something that would spread far beyond this corner cafe, touching lives in ways they couldn't yet imagine. Because sometimes, the smallest acts of kindness, like a waitress taking time to sign with a lonely little girl, can transform into movements that change the world, one butterfly at a time.